If I said the name Demon1 6 months ago, you probably had no idea who I was on about. However, now Demon1 is one of the most talked about players in Valorant, recently winning Valorant Champions 2023, and if you watched any of that game, I'm sure you saw how good his aim was. His aim is something we haven't seen in Valorant Pro Play since the likes of Tenz and Ye. So how did he get his aim so good? Well, today's video will break that all down and show you how you can potentially start to aim like Demon1. The first thing you would notice about his aiming style is that he has very smooth and controlled aim. This is mostly because of his sens being so slow at a surprising 0.1 1600 DPI. As you can see from this clip, he'll try his best to move his mouse as little as possible, and therefore he pays a lot of attention to placing his crosshair on the most likely position of his enemy. If you look at other pros, you can see them moving around a lot more frantically, whereas Demon1 has a very calm aiming style. From watching his clips, it's clear that his top priority is trying to get his crosshair placement as good as possible during the game, and this means it makes it much easier for him to aim, but also when his crosshair placement is perfect, then all he needs to do is click the head for that satisfying one tap. His preferred method of shooting is tapping single bullets. The majority of his fights, he will use a single bullet style with a very small amount of movement between each shot. Occasionally, he might use a burst shooting style with the Vandal and include longer strafes if he wants to add more movement into his fights. You can see he's very calm and steady when taking a fight. He sees an enemy and he'll stop moving and let his mouse do all the aiming for him. He's a player that doesn't rely on movement to adjust his aim. This clip is a great example. As soon as he sees the raise that starts to peak, he immediately stops all movement and uses a burst technique to easily get the kill. His tracking in certain situations is really good. The low sensitivity really allows him to track smoothly, and while he stood still, it really helps when he's aiming. Demon1 not using movement in his aim is what I think makes his aiming ability so consistent, as the movement in Valorant is very difficult and messing up the timings between the strafes can kill your aim. And when you're on the big stage in them high pressure moments, sometimes you can mess the timings up, which is never good. Even though not moving enough in your fights is not the best thing you can do, as it's easy for your enemies to land shots, Demon1's raw aim ability allows him to get that first shot off a lot quicker than his enemies, and usually that first shot is all that it takes for him to get that kill. Another thing that makes Demon1 so consistent is that he is on low sense. Therefore, aiming is much easier in most situations. So you may be asking, why shouldn't everyone be using low sensitivity? Well, it does come with some negatives. The first thing being that close range fights are a nightmare. Demon1 tries to deal with this by being very calm when an enemy gets close, and he tries to track the enemy as best as possible. Secondly, enemy util is always a pain to handle, as you're constantly having to move your mouse so much just to get rid of a Sova dart or a flash. Demon1 knows this, and for example, he usually doesn't play directly on site when defending, as he knows if enemy util comes his way, it's going to make it very difficult for him to survive, and so you'll find him in more passive aggressive spaces instead. Also, he is playing Jet every game, so one dash can get him out of a bad situation with almost no problems at all. Another great example of Demon1 playing to his strengths is that he likes to force long range duels. As a duelist, getting the first blood for your team is a massive help, and since he's on a low sense, long range fights are so much easier to take rather than someone who's on high sense. So you'll consistently see him go for these early long range fights and having great success. For example, he always likes to fight for shower control at the start of the round, as he's confident that the enemies will want to fight for that space, and Demon1 being the aim god that he is, it's usually pretty easy for him to take that fight and win it. You will notice any medium to long range fight, he'll sometimes aim down sights, which seems like it helps him correct his aim. In the past, you'll see other pros that like to aim down sights too, most commonly known as Ye, did this a lot, and it seems like some players just personally like aiming down sights in certain situations. Demon1's aiming style is very controlled inside of Valorant. His aim relies on micro flicks, as he's predicting with his crosshair where the enemy will be. If his prediction isn't 100% correct, then he'll have to do a small flick to lock onto his enemy. This is his warm-up routine to ensure that his flicks are ready before the game. As you can see, many of the drills include flick shots with a mix of ADS shooting. So he practices his flicks in the range just in case his crosshair placement isn't 100% perfect, but if it is, then all he hits is just one taps. And for a player that hits this many one taps, you've just got to appreciate how good his crosshair placement is, because all the players are doing are just walking into his crosshair, and that just makes it really easy for him to click the head and go along with his day.
Oh my god, I feel like Durka right now.
If you also want to feel like Durka, then you can click here. If not, it's been your boy Critical. Peace out.